popular rapper is facing over 60 charges after he was arrested in Cache County.
Days after he was involved in a deadly shooting in Sunny Isles Beach, rapper NBA YoungBoy.
Rapper NBA YoungBoy was arrested and taken into custody.
Rapper NBA YoungBoy was arrested this week at his Mill Creek home.
As of right now, you just gonna be detained. When we get there, you can tell us what's going on. We will hear out both sides.
NBA YoungBoy has gotten into trouble so many times now that he has more mugshots than he has kids. But today, we'll be focusing on one case that has recently gotten him sentenced to 5 years. In September 2020, NBA YoungBoy returned to his hometown of Baton Rouge. His initial plans for his arrival was to film a music video for his song Chopper City. And he wasn't alone. He returned with multiple of his 4KJ boys. They were seen on multiple occasions flashing guns such as Glocks and Dracos. And they weren't hiding it, because NBA YoungBoy would even go on IG Live with his cousin to show the whole world that they weren't lacking in their own city.
Real red, baby. What you want, folks? Take a two. That what my cousin Mitch say? I'm talking five.
Since NBA YoungBoy was home, he had to show the community that he still loved them, and he did that by taking pictures with kids. But these weren't average pictures, no, because he still had to show that he wasn't lacking at all, even if he was with the kid or not. Judging by the videos of the boys online, they looked to be very happy and excited for their music video shoot, and the community looked happy to see their hometown star back home. But not everybody was happy about his return, because one resident would even report him and his members to the police. The resident would tell the 911 dispatch officer that she saw multiple men with guns on Chippewa Street, and she said she saw them filming what looked to be like a rap video in a very violent and gang-like manner. When the dispatch officer asked the woman if she could give a description of the people there, the woman described them as African-American men with dreadlocks and multiple guns. This phone call was enough for the police to respond to the scene, and as the police arrived, multiple of YoungBoy's affiliates made a run for it. Some of them got lucky, but others didn't, as NBA YoungBoy would be seen getting arrested with some of his fellow members, and multiple guns would be seized from them, including $79,000 in cash. But one man who managed to run away was Marvin Ramsey. Marvin Ramsey is the videographer/photographer of NBA YoungBoy, and while he managed to run, he was soon caught. But one thing I want to turn your attention to is what he was caught with. He was caught with a black Sony 7R camera with an SD card inside of it, and this left the police very suspicious, so they would get a search warrant for the SD card. But not just the SD card, but also the cars that were there. The police would find multiple gun magazines, a laptop, and the SD card. They also would manage to get a warrant for the SD card, meaning they had the permission to unlock all its content. And the SD card did not disappoint one bit, because multiple photos were seen of NBA YoungBoy toting some of the guns they seized. And let's not forget that the music video of the song Chopper City, where him and his friends were openly showing all the guns which were seized by police, was also on that SD card. In total, 16 men were arrested that day, one of them being NBA YoungBoy, obviously.
I ain't doing nothing while you holding him like that. He ain't doing shit though. A motherfucking thing.
But this didn't do much, because he posted bail the very next day, and he was still as happy and cheery as usual, as he was seen taking pictures right outside the police station in the same clothes he got arrested in.
Same here.
And he did not forget his friends, because in less than a week, he came back to bail all of them out of prison. After this whole ordeal, NBA YoungBoy would move to Tarzana, California, where he tried to lay low and stay out of trouble, and to his credit, he did. He would even go on to release an album titled Top, which peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. But while NBA YoungBoy thought that case was behind him, the police had other plans for him, as they were planning a federal indictment that would see him spend time in prison for a very long time if found guilty. In March 2021, police would get an arrest warrant with NBA YoungBoy's name on it. They would make their way to his property, where they staked out patiently waiting for him to come out. And once YoungBoy was seen trying to get into his Mercedes-Benz Maybach GLS, they would flash their lights to let him know that they were here to come and get him. But NBA YoungBoy had other plans, as he would drive away from the property trying to escape, and not so long after he would end up ditching the car and running on foot. The police would then send a canine unit to apprehend him, and the dogs worked. They ended up catching NBA YoungBoy. NBA YoungBoy would officially be charged with that Baton Rouge incident, and he would get an extra charge because while the police were searching the Mercedes he tried to get away with, they found a handgun behind the driver's seat. And since he was a convicted felon, he wasn't allowed to have any guns near him. So this means he had an extra separate charge added to him, meaning he was facing what looked to be like 2 federal cases. YoungBoy would spend 7 months locked up, but then he managed to later get house arrest on the condition that he paid $500K in bond. The judge found it easy to grant NBA YoungBoy the house arrest in Utah because it was going to keep him away from some of the gang members he knows in Baton Rouge, meaning it was easier for him to stay out of trouble in Utah than it was Baton Rouge. And when the time finally came, he would go to trial for the gun charge he got while running away from the police. The whole trial was filled with a whole lot of drama, as his lawyer would even come to his defense and claim that NBA YoungBoy's fingerprints weren't even on the gun, and one juror would even be excused for being an NBA YoungBoy fan. Believe it or not, a juror would claim that they were not able to judge NBA YoungBoy fairly because of the love they had for him, meaning the decision they were going to make was definitely going to be in NBA YoungBoy's favor. So because of this, the juror would be excused out of court. But that didn't stop the court proceedings from happening, as the court would finally reach a verdict.
We won! Okay, what you gotta say?
The United States of America versus Kentrell Golden.
Kentrell?
AKA Lil Top. AKA Live.
NBA YoungBoy was found not guilty for the gun case, and multiple fans did not hesitate to show him their joy and support. But it wasn't enough, because even though he did beat that gun case, he still had the previous one pending. YoungBoy would then go back to house arrest, but this time he decided that he wasn't gonna stay out of trouble. And it all started when Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram, Utah received a call from an elderly woman named Bethel White. As the pharmacy did their checks, they found out that the prescription had all the valid information belonging to the physician that made that prescription. But something was fishy about the phone number that the patient called in from. So the staff at Reed's Pharmacy decided to dig a little bit deeper, and when they found the actual number of the physician who was named on the prescription, they contacted him about it, and he said that he had never made any prescription to a pharmacy in Hiram. And what was even more suspicious is that he said that he never even had a patient by the name Bethel White. So with all this weird stuff going on, the Reed's Pharmacy staff decided to get the police involved. Police officers would be staged at the parking lot of the pharmacy to try and apprehend anyone who would try to pick up the prescription, but no one turned up. This wasn't the only time this fraud happened though, because later on the same day at Spencer's Pharmacy in Logan, a person would order the same prescription using the same physician's information, but this time under the name Gwendolyn Cox instead of Bethel White. About 2 weeks after the prescription was called in, it would be picked up by an unnamed female. The female claimed that Gwendolyn Cox was her grandmother. 1 month later, on October 9th, another prescription was ordered from the same physician trying to prescribe promethazine to the same patient, Gwendolyn Cox. But the pharmacists were getting a little bit suspicious. The pharmacy called the real physician and he denied filing the prescription and told them that his name was being used for fraud. The pharmacy had enough of these shady calls, so they decided to hatch a plan to nab whoever came in to collect the prescriptions. 2 different women who were known to have a connection with NBA YoungBoy would come in and claim the medication. They both were later arrested for the investigation, but surprisingly, someone would try to get everything cleared up, and it was none other than Gwendolyn Cox, except she doesn't exist. It was actually NBA YoungBoy calling, pretending to be an old woman. When speaking to the officer, Gwendolyn couldn't even provide her age. Gwendolyn would also refuse to give the officer her address, even though she was willing to fill in one for her fake prescription. But the worst part of all this was that the officer quickly realized that the voice was being faked. The officer said that Gwendolyn sounded like a much younger male from the South. And if that didn't prove that YoungBoy was involved with the 2 women, when they were confronted by the police, they were in a white Chevy Tahoe, which was registered to a man named Kentrell Golden, who happens to be NBA YoungBoy himself. The police officers would also ask the women if they could search the vehicle, to which they agreed to. During the search, police would find multiple marijuana flakes and an empty gun case for a 1911 .45 caliber. When one of the women was asked who she was picking up the prescription for, she said it was for a woman named Deborah Cox. It seemed like she was not good at lying because the prescription said it was for a Gwendolyn Cox. When the women were arrested, the SUV was taken to an impound lot, so NBA YoungBoy tried to get it back, but the impound yard connected him with the investigating officers. The investigators on the case ended up speaking to him directly on the phone when he confirmed that the two women in custody actually did have his permission to take the car because they were family. The investigators summed up that because of the amount of meds NBA and his crew were allegedly obtaining, it was enough for distribution, and this was good enough for a judge to grant the investigators a search warrant. Multiple agents would storm into NBA YoungBoy's home and search the place for whatever they could find. Some officers would even interview YoungBoy while the search took place. He was asked if he had any firearms on the property, and he said that only one belonging to his wife, which he did not have any access to. But during the search, police would find the gun inside his closet where he definitely would have had access to it. During the search, the team would also find a prescription bottle which was identified to be YoungBoy's, but the bottle was prescribed for a woman named Caroline White, which was a name that was also used to get the prescription meds. All this proof was finally enough to charge NBA YoungBoy with 20 counts of identity fraud, 20 counts of forgery, and 20 counts of procuring a drug prescription. YoungBoy would be arrested and even spotted in court looking happier than you'd expect. But on the 20th of August 2024, things would take a dramatic turn as NBA YoungBoy would decide to plead guilty on conditions that his case be moved from Louisiana to Utah. But the case he pled guilty to was not the drug fraud case. It was actually for federal weapons charges, which was the case he had been fighting earlier and the case that eventually led to him being on house arrest, which would lead to him getting 27 months in prison and 5 years probation. The plea deal which he managed to get was firstly for the Chopper City music video and for the gun the police found while they were searching his house in the prescription case investigation. In all honesty, NBA YoungBoy is lucky to get the sentence that he got, because if he did not reach the plea deal, he would be facing more than 10 years in prison. But somebody he might have met in prison is rapper Blueface, because he's currently serving 4 years for one of the dumbest crimes ever. But you gotta click this video to find out.